only to the saints who have been called out by our Father and given to Jesus Christ, according to his purpose. There have been an awful lot of wonderful, wonderful people who have wanted it, who have worked at it, who have studied, but they couldn't have it. The Father calls you out, and if he doesn't, you can't come. So you are the privileged people, very, very much so. But it doesn't make us Lord High Muckety Mucks. It's impossible for any man or woman at any time and any age to earn the incredible privilege that we have. If we're good every day of our lives from here on in, it doesn't make us immortal. There is no power that can do that other than God, and it's a gift. Always a gift. But we can lose it unless we stay close to God and feed on his word, the Bible. Now here's the sad thing. Many will not make it into the kingdom. They just don't have sufficient respect for law and order. And yes, it is difficult. There are so many voices, so many ideas, so many would-be authorities. How is one to choose? Even in the churches of God. Now, yes, we have divisions by reason of geography, by reason sometimes of different perspective. But it's the same law and the same people, and should be respected in that way. Let's try to stay away from politics.
Okay, so I was testing the live feed multiple times, and well, it wasn't working very well to my liking. So, but I did find my trusty mic, so we'll start right now. Okay, June 5th, 2020 to July 5th, 2020 is the latest newsletter at citedmoon.com. This is 2020, which was 6 days ago. You can see that very interesting picture. So this is the 15th newsletter for the year, and it is the 6th day of the 4th month. And I just remembered trumpets is in less than 3 months. So what can we expect on that day? Something significant, I'm led to believe. May 30, 2020. Okay, how is that published May 24, but it's actually May 30. Okay, so that's today. Shabbat Shalom to the royal family of Jehovah. And where I am at, Shabbat has been, well, sunset is almost an hour ago. But I usually wait till an hour afterwards. In the mail, greeting. I'm just going to fix that myself. Greetings. Your teaching of last week was excellent. Great slides. Your message was absolutely clear, and you avoided a deep argument of the problems raised by other theories. You showed the errors of others quite clearly. It was a timely topic for me. The previous week, I had decided to read The Coming Prince by Sir Robert Anderson to find out why Gavin Finley was so much of a disciple. Claiming Anderson found the Rosetta Stone for biblical prophecy. Let me just make sure this is working. I don't like doing this with the... Okay, it's working. Anderson's theory is a bit different than the others. By the way, he constructs his fable, but is not worth raising in your teaching. I mainly got into less than a third of his book to fully see his mistakes. Okay, why didn't you read the whole thing? And how his cunningly contrived fable was constructed. I don't think I can finish the book, despite it being easy reading. It is all based on flawed beginnings. Gavin Finley must be easy to persuade. I had a look at some of his videos. The feast days used to support his end-time theories. I hope I am wrong. He may have just not needed to emphasize them at those talks. Sir Robert made a few interpretations of scripture on other topics that I won't cover, but the main building block is / was the 360-day year. I hope I'm still producing sound there. Okay. Where am I now? 360-day year. While he was very well written, perfect prose and logic if you accept the fallacy, he based this on belief in what I think was accepted in his religious circle. He called the 360-day year the ancient calendar. He stated was of 360 days, and that Abraham kept the 360-day year. He claimed that the Babylonian calendar was a 360-day year, and that Sir Isaac Newton believed in the 360-day year. Number 6, etc., etc. Of course, none of these is validated, except if one is happy to accept other faith-based sources without any thought process. But later on, I wondered if his acceptance of this myth was a true ignorance. True ignorance. Hold on a sec. I'm just moving stuff around so I can put my feet up. True ignorance or be intentional. It conveniently suited the theory. Why? While talking about years, he totally ignores the fact that Hebrew years have intercalary months. It's hard to believe that he was not aware of this fact, because he didn't do his homework. In his 70 weeks prophecy, he claims things like 483 solar years equals 490 lunar years. This is a huge deception. Self-delusion, but he sells it to his followers. Here are some examples. Now, from the 10th day of the Torah, Tebeth, sorry, why did I say Torah? Of Tebeth, BC 589, and that's the Babylonian name of the month, to the 24th day of Kislev, that's also a Babylonian name, it's a pagan name. BC 520 was a period of 25,202 days, and 70 years of 360 days contain exactly 25,200 days. We may conclude, therefore, that the era of the desolations was a period of 70 years of 360 days, beginning the day after the Babylonian army invested Jerusalem, maybe invaded, and ending the day before the foundation of the second temple was laid. From the year succeeding the dedication of Solomon's temple to the year before the foundation of the second temple was laid was a period of 490 years of 360 days. No, I did not check up. And then, and this leads to one of his early conclusions, Gavin Finley's Rosetta Stone. Now, this 70th week is admittedly a period of 7 years, and half of this period is 3 times described as a time, times, and half a time, or the dividing of a time. Twice as 42 months, and twice as 1,260 days. But 1,260 days are exactly equal to 42 months of 30 days, or 3.5 years of 360 days, whereas 3.5 Julian years contain 1,278 days. It follows, therefore, that the prophetic year is not the Julian year, but the ancient year of 360 days. He has made the same mistake as the COGs, I think as Churches of God, and others do, that this half a week in prophecy describe with three different measures of time. It is talking about the exact same event occurring over the same duration. I had proved this was not true to myself before I learned of your teaching. Has the event separated? Why? Like your teaching of different Nida cycles for Israel and for the beast, the 42 months, 1260 days, and times, and half a time refer to different subjects. Once that is accepted, then the prophecies can be disentangled somewhat. I consider, how can I do this? I consider that the 42 the beast power. The 42 months is about the beast power. The beast power, okay. So I'm trying to make sense of what I'm reading. I consider that the 42 months is about the beast power. What's that? 3.5 years. The 1260 days about the power direction of God. 2 witnesses, the church in the wilderness. Yes, a COG theory. The times, and half a time about the saints, Israel, the elect. As such, one does not need to use a pacifier and wrap these up as 42 months equals 1260 days equals times, and half a time based on a mythical 360-day year. Why are these events listed in 3 different ways? Maybe they are the same duration, or maybe not. Scripture does not seem to provide any references to the solar year, nor to the Julian/Gregorian calendar. Why do the COG and other Christian groups that attempt to interpret prophecy and create what they call God's sacred calendar, reading the real calendar, driven by the moon cycles, one of the few witnesses that matter? I have to chuckle when comparing the cycles created by our Father with the modern world. People today are so ignorant that life based on agricultural societies that lasted for thousands of years could manage and could discern the months and the seasons without a modern computer. We live with a 24-hour clock, almost a necessity and very useful. It is such that every day is exactly 24 hours, and the average day is thus exactly 24 hours, but with a sunset to sunset day virtual, no day is ever 24 hours, except maybe 4 times a year, a single longitude such that the sunset one day is followed by a sunset the next day at exactly the same time. At other times, no 2 days in the year have the same time between sunsets. For half the year, the day is longer than 24 hours, and less than 24 hours the rest. So o'clock average day is 24 hours over a year. Every day is 24 hours exactly, but so sunset/sunset average day over a year is 24 hours, but no individual day is 24 hours. We can do the same with months. Those following the Hebrew calculated calendar, or Hillel 2, have stated that the molad duration is exactly 29.530588 days. Ignoring the fact that this is given as the average duration I've done charts from data from timeanddate.com, which show that over a 20-year duration, that only twice is 0.530588 days achieved within 30 seconds error, and only 7 more times that it is within 30 minutes. At all other times, it is varies cyclically. So, calculated calendar, lunation is based on 29.5305888 days. But lunar months, average may be 29.530588 days, but very few instances, 2 out of about 235 times over 20 years in reality. The other fallacy that is used to support the calculated calendar is the 19-year time cycles. Yes, after 19 years, the calendars do align extremely well. The claim is that the heavens are back in alignment. But when you see the charts, it is obvious that the lunation cycle, through 8 cycles in 9 years, 16 in 18 years, and then are into their next cycle for the 19th year. So while the calendars may align, the moon. When I looked at the NASA webpage on eclipses, it mentions a Saros cycle for a repetition of the eclipses, it being 18 years and 11 days and 8 hours. I think this is what I was seeing if I interpret the curve I created as being like a sine wave, the positive part being the first 8 lunation cycle, 9 years, and the negative part being a second 8 lunation cycles, 9 years. Sorry, I got carried away. That's okay. I was an engineer, so the left side of my mind dominates, and I had a tendency in the past to accept the 360-day year, the 3.5 years interpretation, and many other things that could be nailed down solid. But now I have been slapped around a bit to realize that if one also uses the right side of the brain, that artistry and other creative things can be seen. Well, then, not that. Yet, when I analyze these artistic things, I do so with an engineer's methodology. Oh well, I try. Why do I think about the calendar argument is somewhat needed, for me at least? There are hundreds of thousands of ex-Church of God and similar groups that have a beginning of the knowledge of the holy days. This might be what I have to give one day to help someone change and recognize the difference between the culture. It was what made me see everything anew. Cheers, Pat. Yeah, personal testimony. Ever since I started keeping the sighted moon calendar. Okay, well, my life before sighted moon calendar, I was trying to, read the Bible, pray, be a good Christian, whatever. But I was pretty much a big hypocrite. Maybe even more so, like 80% of my life was in the world, and 20% was in the Bible and the Word of God, maybe even less. But since keeping the sighted moon calendar, I've seen a transformation in my life where I don't just say one thing and do another thing, but trying hard, with God's help, to try to be a better person. And my personal sins, my secret sins, I try to deal with. I'm just going to say it out loud, but addiction to pornography. Been addicted to pornography and I've been trying to overcome it, but God called me, and I said, God help me to deal with it. But I used my own human effort to try to overcome it, but to no avail. And then when I started keeping the sighted moon calendar and really wanting to do what Jehovah wants me to do his will, and to really do it from the heart, not just, just to look holy or something. I started to feel more convicted. Many, many people that I met along this walk, this way, have shined a light on the dark parts of my life that I try to keep hidden. And, when you're able to look at yourself in the mirror and you don't turn away, you don't go on that. You really take it to heart that, the word of God is like a mirror, and it shines a light on who you are, and it reflects back to you who you are in your present state, and how far, well, not how far, but I mean, it shows you the things that need changing. I've had challenges with my diet. I've had challenges with disciplining myself and sleeping, at a decent hour, waking up early in the morning. I've had challenges with reading my Bible every day. I've had challenges with praying every day, at a decent, at least twice a day. Some people say, morning and night. That's like the Church of God thing, morning and night. Saying that's what they used to say, pray at least, once a day or twice a day or what have you. And since keeping a sighted moon calendar and really following this way, I'm not going to say it's messianic. I'm not going to say it's Hebrew roots. I'm just going to say following Yeshua, because that's really the thing. You follow him, really follow the movement or labels and all that. It's just, you either have the spirit or you don't. You either obey him or you don't. And you either obey him because you want people to look at you and say, hey, look at that guy, he's holy. Or you do it because you want to do it, because you don't care what people think. You care what God. So I've seen a lot of big changes in my life. And this isn't just, it's not a fad. It's not, this isn't just religion anymore. It's not like a social club. It's not a once a week thing. It's not a contest to show who knows more. It's not a contest to conduct yourself as, holier than thou. It's not a contest to see who's closer to God. It's not a contest to prove, more Hebrew or whatever it is, but it's really a contest with yourself to overcome who you. Every day we have to die spiritually. We have to recognize that an important realization, and I know I'm kind of off topic, but I feel this needs to be addressed. I'm going to continue the newsletter, but this needs to be addressed. It's recognizing that the flesh wants to be the leader and the master over your soul. When you're hungry, the stomach becomes the master of your soul, but the flesh, and I guess in a lot of men's cases, their libido or their carnal, what do you call it? Their lust becomes the master of them. Out of pure desire, out of carnal lust, the spirit will desire or not the spirit, but the soul of man. Oh, hold on. Let me rewind. Okay, so the spirit, I was writing here that the spirit will desire sex. Let me explain that. It sounds kind of controversial, but the spirit of God uses sex for the purpose of propagating spiritual righteous seed. So, for example, Abraham and Sarah, obviously they had to have sex, and when, as a result of that uh, copulation, Isaac was born. As a result of Isaac and Rebecca, Jacob was born. Out of a result of Jacob and I think it was Rachel, Joseph was born. Like you, so sex is good. It's Satan. It's the enemy who takes it and turns it into uh, something that's not what God intended. Reprobate. It's no longer, good in God's eyes. You've misused it. Like a sword, like a gun, those can be good, but if you use it for evil, then they become evil. So sex is not in vain. You don't do it just for fornication or out of impure intentions. Impure intentions. So this is a key point because most people believe that sex is evil. It isn't. It's not evil. But it is when used for the wrong reasons and at the wrong time, the wrong purpose. The first key to know or to understand is that the flesh, the lust, the man's libido, I don't know how else to say it, but the head, I guess you could say the second head, wants to recruit the eyes of your body, or I guess in a woman's case, their libido wants to pull their eyes, recruit their eyes, to pull the rest of the body on board with their mission, their sinful mission. Their objective is sinful, fornication, impure intentions. But when it does this, it is able to convince the mind and the hands and if it could even get the heart on board, that's going to be very, it's going to be a very bad thing, a big defeat, I would say. It could get the heart to devote itself to that cause, that sinful cause. However, the other team, on the flip side, you have the other team, which is the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit, which aims to recruit the mind and heart and the mouth and the hands to follow the will of Jehovah. Okay, and for the eyes and the hands to restrain themselves from evil, but instead to do good, because we can, like in Philippians, it says we can think on what is good. We can focus. We can actually look at good things. We can look to good things, honorable things, but they are few and far between in our culture, in our pop culture, in our mainstream culture. If you have Netflix or any streaming platform, try to look for something that's holy, that God would be pleased with. I'd say it's less than 1% of the content on Netflix and all those streaming platforms have something that doesn't have fornication in it, that doesn't show anything anti-Torah, but is, respectful to elders, respectful to parents. Women dress conservatively, men and women understand their roles. Family is portrayed in a good light. Values are upheld, biblical values of, integrity and basically, Torah supporting, how do I say it? Like content that promotes a Torah lifestyle, content that promotes what God wants us to do and how to live, how to think, how to talk, how to behave, how to treat each other, our relationships with each other and with God, like anything that strives to make men strive and understand that they are created after God's image, and that's our objective, and that we didn't come from animals, and thus most of the time I'll put on something, or I don't even put anything on. I just, to be honest, I'll read the synopsis, and I'll say, for example, a drug dealer or a man, and we'll say like a young woman meets a married man, and they begin an affair. As soon as they see affair, drug trafficking, any sort of behavior that is anti-Torah, I don't even consider it. I just say, waste of time. In my head, I go, waste of time, and it's going to corrupt my mind and my behavior. It'll rub off on me. It's like jumping in raw sewage and saying, okay, I won't get a smell. No, you're going to come out. You're still going to have stains on you and smells, and you're going to have to take a bath like 100 times. Or, you might be permanently corrupted. Why take the risk, right? So anyway, that's my rant. I don't know why I got into that rant. I guess I was just saying that ever since Elohim, Jehovah has opened, specifically the sighted moon calendar, and just really looking at the Bible honestly, he's given me a lot more accountability, and I feel more accountable for the way I live, and I'm more mindful of any hypocrite. For example, my room is a total mess. It looks like a war zone. Like, my room looks like a tornado went through it. Well, not that bad, but it's like someone tried to stack everything. Like, I don't know, but it looks bad. And I understand that. I realize that it doesn't reflect good on a follower of this way. And, one of my goals in the next, for this year, let's just say, hopefully before Yom Teruah, I want to clean this room up and make it so that it reflects a follower of Yehoshua. Because I know that this disorder and chaos in my room is not reflected orderly mind. And, little by little, I have to break it down to small parts, and, I'll get to it. But I made a promise. I'm going to make a promise. I've made a promise, and I will make a promise right now. I'm going to clean this room up. It's going to be a lot better than its present state. It's going to reflect a follower of Yehoshua in this way. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to talk about that. So sorry, I went on such a big tangent. I'll continue on. Okay. So it's a long newsletter, by the way, but I scanned through it. It looks like a very interesting newsletter. There's going to be a lot of interesting topics. There's a lot of interesting things in here. Okay, so where am I? Let's make sure we're still going, because I just did a big confession, and I don't care. Life is life, and life is life. And if I just hide who I am, it's not right. Like, I'm not saying everyone should confess their sins, but it's my testimony to say that I realized that, ever since I'm following the sighted moon calendar, that's one of to be honest, I proved a lot of things for myself, but this calendar, when I proved that, I tried to prove it wrong, but when it proved itself, or I should say when God revealed it to me, that this is actually what Yeshua was doing, because there was no issue. There was no issue with the calendar back in his day, because it only had that calendar. And one of the strongest evidences, besides, that's what Yehoshua kept, is that the conjunction moon, when the moon is fully dark and is not visible, that can last 3 days. That begs the question, so which day is the new moon? Is it one of those 3 days? No, that's confusing. It has to be one day. It has to be one day. And what day is that? That's when we first see the moon. Obviously, a sign, when God creates a sign in the heavens, it's not something that cannot be seen. The sun is a sign because it's full of light. The stars are a sign, they are made of light. The moon is also a lesser light, so it cannot be a sign of its darkness. I think that's something that people, they stumble on this, especially people in the churches of God. To a lot of people, they hold on to their traditions so tightly that for them to even consider this fact, this historical fact that you can prove pretty easily, to be honest, that Yeshua and all the Jews in those days, all the Israelites, or especially, those who were Jewish in that area in Israel and Jerusalem, they were keeping that sighted moon calendar. Even the Jews admit this. It's sad, but the Father has blinded a lot of people to the truths, to many truths, and even this truth among many. So let's continue on. I'm sorry for the side note, but I had to talk about that. So, okay, Shalom, Yosef. Thank you for your letter, guys. It has taken me this much time to respond. Life in the birth pangs is quite busy. Yeah, it is the birth pangs. I get what you are saying and certainly want to get the memo when it's time to flee, and yet I believe that we have the power to shift how things go down. We have the power to shift how things go down. Okay. Not in the complete plan, as Jehovah will see it through in his timing, but in the walking out of our kingdom assignments, glorifying our King, and bringing so many more into the kingdom before it's too late. Again, you nailed the timeline, so I am paying attention and telling others about it. Let's do an interview soon if you still wish, though we will most likely not agree on everything. I need to make sure that I endorse you properly, not in order to protect myself or anything like that. I did have that attitude in the past, but I don't give a crap anymore. But so many people can get it. After Shavuot, we move into harvest time, and it's when the stranger gleans. Your works are extensive, and most cannot take the time to review them, and don't even have the capacity to understand. These Gentile Christian widows and orphans are starving for truth and want to come glean. How do we make it easy for them to approach the corners of our well-worked fields and take just what they need in order to survive, and then join with Israel? I am reconnecting with basically everyone from the past, and they're all getting the same downloads, just from different angles. The Ruach is speaking. Just yesterday, an old friend told me that he is working to get elders together to discuss what a righteous people look like, and we're going to combine forces. In order to inspire boldness and proclaim what Jehovah showed me back in November about our region, I made a statement at our county commissioners meeting this week. Mostly, I did it so others will break through the fear and stand up too. It's got over 5,000 Facebook views in under 3 days, so somewhat going viral. Please check it out, and if you believe in the message, please share it. So I opened it, and we're gonna look. Does it have 5,000 views? I have to look at this. That's quite a lot in 3 days. But this person, we have a wide, like, social net. I guess a big sphere of influence, I suppose. Once it loads, oh, here it is. Okay. Speaking truth to power. Okay, 87 comments. 253 reactions, and I don't see the view count yet, but okay. I'm gonna have to take their word for it. I don't see. How do I do this? See more. Oh, 87 comments. Doesn't see how many views. I'm just gonna click on this.
Good morning.
Good morning, and if you could please just state your name and then you may begin.
My name is Chaim Goldman. This is my eldest son, Moshe Goldman. We've prepared a two-page statement. We'd like to ask for a total of 6 minutes to give it, since both of us are up here. Okay. Thank you. Honorable El Paso County Commissioners, may not agree with my words. I would ask you to hear.
Okay, let me just. I'm getting a little OCD about this, so. I want to see if he was telling the truth. 5K views. I mean, it's not even a lot of views, but I guess for me that would be a lot of views. If did a video and had 5K views, that would be quite a lot in 3 days. It's more than 1,000 per day. So I'm going to click on his name and open a new tab and just see on the 19th of May. Does it show the number of views? Okay, let's just wait for it to load. June 5th, okay. All right. You know what? Thank you for your friendship and your loyal service to our great King. Shabbat Shalom. For such a time as this, Chaim. So let's double check. Just make sure we're still streaming, because I've been shut down multiple times. Okay. Okay, it says here, repairing the breach. Yeah, I don't know if you can't you can't actually see the number of views. See, like, for example, where are the views here? Just says shares. I'm going a little off topic now, but I'm looking for May 19th. Okay, May 19. 229 shares. Okay, this is El Paso again. Board of County Commissioners. When you say there's too much evil. But that's who you're trying to disprove. Because if there's no moral lawgiver, there's no moral law. There is no good, okay? Alright, that's so confusing, but okay. Oh, here it is. So this is the video he said has 5,000 views. I don't see that here anywhere. I see that as 416 shares. If I pause it, there's nothing. There's no statistics. Like, why doesn't it say? It doesn't say. How can I see that? What is this? The Globe Public. Edit history. Embed. Where does it say it has that many views? Okay, if I hover over it. Let me just click on this video. Just click on that there.
Since both of us are up here.
Okay, you know what? Forget this. Forget it. I'm just gonna take his word for it. Okay, whatever. So he has views, period. Because he's got shares. So anyway, Shabbat meeting, that was earlier today. The Great Depression of 2020. This week I was sent a chart by a brother advising me about the markets that are about to tank. This brother is a technical stock advisor in Europe and a believer. His words, the bear market has begun. So this is, when is this? That was annually. Okay. So as you can see, this is the recession when Obama was there. And then it started going up. This is the Trump years from 2016. You can see that even during Obama's time, it was going up. And then during Trump, continued to go up. But then all of a sudden, a boom. Like it's going down to, it's a huge, you can see it's a very big, and this is despite all their pumping money into that. I'm not a stock advisor, nor am I giving you advice about whether to short or go long in the markets. I'm just showing you this chart as of May 21st, when it was sent to me. Unemployment. Unemployment is surging at a record pace. Let me just make sure I'm plugged in. Unemployment, and make sure the stream is still going. I hate when they shut me down. Okay, it's still going. Unemployment is surging at a record pace, but the stock market is outperforming. Around 39 million Americans have filed for unemployment, but stimulus, paychecks, and jobless benefits have made up for some lost incomes, and more stimulus checks may land in mailboxes soon. As a result, consumer sentiment is still better than the worst of the 2008 financial crisis. Okay, what's going on with my computer? Hold on, I gotta plug this in before it dies. Otherwise, there's no point. Okay. Okay, let's make sure the battery. Gotta keep checking these things. Okay, so we are plugged in. Okay. All right. Okay, I don't know. It's a big mess. Whatever. It says here, 39 million Americans have filed for unemployment. Right. But the depression is still young. We still haven't felt its toll. Sentiment will deteriorate. The optimism of reopening the economy will wear off. The reality of the economic slowdown will set in. Okay, the reality will set in, right? The very same day I received the charts above, I was sent the following advertisement for a newsletter. Jim Rickards is telling us from news reports from respective sources that the pandemic is going to last. I think he's right. It's going to at least 12. So we're looking at, I'm getting reports from China that said that it actually started September, October. So this is going for at least till October, September, October. So the feast, the fall festivals. We will have a second wave. Okay. Not if, but when it comes, and that it will be followed by a third wave. Wow. We wrote about this a few weeks ago when we explained the Spanish flu pandemic to you. And that's important. I always thought, hey, 2 waves, okay, but a third wave, ouch. Mr. Rickards can be Googled on YouTube, maybe searched, and you can listen to his advice for many interviews. He goes on to say that we are already in a recession. The following articles from May 9, 2020. In 2 terrible months, the coronavirus pandemic has driven unemployment in the US to levels unseen since the 1930s Great Depression. Did it have to be this way? COVID-19 has cost more than 33 million Americans their jobs. In the last 7 weeks, 10% of the entire US population. Then on May 21st, 2020, we have the following new article. US unemployed reading 39 million. That's only, what's that, 12 days later? Wow. The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits in the 2 months since the coronavirus took hold has swelled to 39 million. Even as states from coast to coast gradually reopen, more than 2.4 million people filed for unemployment. That brings the running total to 38.6 million. Like watching a slow-moving tsunami as it hit Japan a few years ago, you can't believe what you're seeing, and yet you watch as the waters slowly rise and the houses get swept away. You see the odd car driving towards it and then turn around and race to escape. You can't take your eyes away as you watch each building get crushed under the weight of the ensuing water and debris. So is this economic catastrophe that is now sweeping the U.S. I want to mention before I read this next heading is that, I've been receiving government checks for financial assistance relating to this pandemic. And to be honest, like most of the money really goes to cover food. And none of that is going to really anything that I would normally buy or, before the pandemic. You could just spend it on leisure activities. There's pretty much no leisure going on. I mean, if you count buying scriptural books as leisure, I mean, I guess you could say that. Buying religious books, like, apocryphal books and Bibles and whatnot. If you're buying those, because I esteem them as more valuable than gold. I know a lot of people are investing in gold and silver, and it's wise to do that. But really, the most valuable thing we could ever acquire in this life is the Word of God and the varying texts that relate to it, including the Book of Jasher, Jubilees, Enoch, pseudepigraphas, apocryphal books, the Old Testament Apocrypha, the New Testament Apocrypha, the Life and Times of Jesus Christ. Basically immersing ourselves in the culture of Torah, the culture of Jehovah. That's what I've been spending my money on, that and food. So, to be honest, I don't see how I'm stimulating the economy. Maybe just food production. And that's really, this pandemic is showing us the importance of farming, the importance of food production, and everything else is just vanity, like clothing and leisurely items, entertainment, sports, anything that's not food and necessary, like hospitals and police and firefighters and what do you call them, services, something services, life vital services, whatever the term is, but you know, those people whose jobs actually matter, like to life, I mean. Because advertising, to be honest, doesn't really matter. It's a bunch of lies. It's satanic, in my opinion. There are very few advertisements that portray the family in a good light, that portray anyone with any modicum of dignity and respect, and show like any sort of moral decency in a good light. It's always, you know, showing people as carnal and like animals, and everything's a joke, and seniors are depicted like comic relief. They depict the relationships between people and races and families like we're animals, and we're so degenerate anyway. Like a slow, okay, where am I now? This is the economic catastrophe is now sweeping the USA and the world. The first domino, Jim Rickards says the first domino that is going to fall is depression levels of unemployment. And from the recent news, it would seem he is correct in what he has been warning us is coming. The second domino is going to be massive bankruptcies, or 39 million in the USA not employed. Many have deferred their rent and mortgages for 3 months. When those 3 months come to a close, millions still do not have a job. They will now be faced with bankruptcy. Watch out for August. You know, we're going to see millions homeless then. Because if what someone told me was true, that it is true that the banks will just repossess people's houses and land and all that, they will not think twice kicking them out, right? If they can't provide the money required for their mortgages and all that. We're going to see a ton of people homeless living in the, literally in the forest. And there are already people living in the forest, but I mean, we're going to see millions of people living in the forest. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing because people will learn survival preparedness, but it's bad because obviously people don't believe in Torah, so they're just going to be raping and pillaging, basically. So, oh boy, it's going to become the Wild West. Third domino. Once the second event begins to take hold, you will see bank failures. All these banks will be holding these huge debts, and no one is going to be paying for those debts. This could come quickly on the heels of the second domino. Well, you know what? This may or may not happen because the government could bail out the banks. You know, this isn't set in stone. This may or may not happen. So the fourth domino, once the money in the banks is locked up and no one can get their money, and more than 10% of the population not working, and massive bank failures, then you will see a collapse of society. Yeah, that could very well happen. I encourage you all to watch the videos and the links I've attached above. Okay, I didn't see, I guess these are the videos. I don't know if these are the videos. It looks like articles. Jim Rickards, okay. Maybe it's this, I don't know, but it's not, there's no little hand. See the hand, but then there's no hand over here. Okay, the day of reckoning. Here we are, the day before the infamous countdown clock. I put on the homepage that counted down the time left to the start of the 2300 days, which would then lead up to the time when the two witnesses would begin to do their work, which would conclude at Passover in 2030 and be followed by 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. With Passover being a month early this year, I was, like many of you, caught off guard. But we followed the cloud and kept Passover on March 10 to 11, 2020. The very same day, who declared a worldwide pandemic in the very year we have been warning about for the past 15 years, 2020. So would that stand to, would that mean then that 3.5 years, 2,300 days started in March? Is that is that a possibility is what I'm asking? Since it really isn't Shavuot, it's not it really seemed to start at the beginning of this year. So February, March area. So if we're gonna take 2,200 days, which is roughly, what's that, 360 times, I guess that's six or so years. So 6 years from this is 2026. So we could see the 3.5 year Great Tribulation start in 2026 then. Then the week before Shavuot, on May 3rd, 2020, the UN announced that a famine of biblical proportions was in the making, going to be here in 3 months, July, August 2020. 3 months' time, affecting 135 million people in 10 countries, unless the world economic picture was not rectified immediately. This too was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has forced the entire world to shut down to stop the contagion from spreading further. The week after Shavuot, we began to hear about meat processing plants shutting down, and even with a surplus of animals to slaughter, there was a shortage of meat on the shelves again due to the COVID-19. Lest I forget, there's also a plague of locusts of biblical proportions stretching out from East Africa across Saudi Arabia and into Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, and reaching into China. A swarm of 40 million locusts can eat as much food as 35,000 people or 6 elephants, according to the UN. Okay, so there's a map about the locusts where there's swarms and bands and hoppers, and I don't know what that even means, but basically this is where they are, all the dots. And now as we approach this date that we have been warning you about, the world economies are on the verge of collapse, breaking the pride of your power. I guess that's the power of the government. But I want to mention that the 2026, right? No, I want to mention about Shavuot, because a lot of people are keeping it tomorrow. A lot of people kept it in the past week, so I guess Wednesday, Thursday. And funnily enough, well, not funnily, but if you're paying attention to the news, and you have to be living under a rock to not even notice what's happening in America, specifically in America. There was a cold-blooded murder that occurred as a result of police brutality. And, there were racist cops, there were racist people of all races, but in this case, these cops overexerted their power, they abused their power. They killed a man in cold blood. I'm not going to talk about race, I'll just talk about 4 men, and specifically one with a knee on the back of another human being's neck. They murdered a man. They murdered a human being. 4 human beings murdered 1 human being who was already handcuffed and on his stomach. And they killed him. And as a result, you have these riots going on. And this is, I don't know if hopefully it calms down and people are able to vent, and then they can calm down as a result once justice is served. And they've already arrested the man with the knee to the back of the other man's knee, or neck, I should say. And this is really a wake-up call that, God doesn't respect people's skin color. God doesn't respect people's social status. He doesn't respect those things. He respects those who have the right heart towards him, who do what is pleasing in his sight. We shouldn't judge people or anyone, based on outward physical appearance. Just because someone is black or brown or yellow or red or white or pink or what have you, we shouldn't judge people based on those things. We should judge them based on the content of their character, on their words, on their actions. There are stereotypes about different races, and personally, I don't think those are racist, unless they are racist. But for the most part, when we have stereotypes and you have some assumptions about people, those are defensive mechanisms. Because if a people is known for being pirates, for example, Somalians, you have to take precautions. I'm not saying treat them like dirt. I'm saying keep them at arm's length. And, when someone, in order for someone to be respected, they have to earn that respect. In order for someone to be trusted, they have to earn that trust. And I guess God will give you the discernment to perceive whether someone can be trusted or whether that person needs to be avoided. So it's really a wake-up call, I think, to a lot of people, especially Americans, really the whole world, that, God doesn't respect people because of their skin color. He doesn't look at those things. He looks at the heart. Another thing that people need to learn from this, and I think it's falling on deaf ears, is that there are a lot of riots going on, whether staged or whatever you want to call them. The Bible says pretty explicitly, do not follow a mob to do evil. There are many reports of businesses being looted. These are small businesses too, not just, big ones like Target. You actually have mom and pop type businesses owned by all sorts of people, including Black people, African American people, and they're being robbed. They're having their businesses destroyed and their goods stolen. And who's gonna they need justice too then, right? Because justice for George Floyd, I totally agree. There has to be justice for him. But the measures that have been taken from the riots is way over proportionate to what had happened. And it's disproportionate because in my opinion, the only justice should be against those four men. They need to be charged and, really to the full extent of the law. Because one did murder him, whether second degree or third degree, but he was murdered, essentially. And the other three were accomplices because they helped. They were silent. They didn't stop it from happening. They didn't tell that man to take his knee off his neck, even though the man was pleading for his life, that he couldn't breathe. They could have just said, okay, that's enough. They could have said, okay, come on, that's enough. He's going to die. Let's not murder him in cold blood. Let's bring him to jail. Because that's what we do. We arrest people. We put them in the car. We bring them to jail. You don't do that, especially out in public like that, for everyone to see. I don't know. You know what? I'm not going to be silent about this. this is a human rights issue. It's not about skin color. It's not about American. It's just about being human. And the fact of the matter is, George Floyd's death is tragic. But I wish we would also talk about all the other deaths that are occurring around the world. Christians are being beheaded around the world. They're being persecuted just because they believe in Jesus Christ. You have women in India being raped just because they're women in a lot of cases. I'm not saying, in a lot of cases, just there's a rape culture in India. You have South African farmers who are being genocided because they're white in unspeakable ways. If they actually recorded the way these white South African farmers are being slaughtered, if they did, people wouldn't be able to sleep for like months. And, God knows what's happening there. It's beyond horrific. Whatever horror movie you could ever watch, this is worse, and this is reality, sadly. So, Black Lives Matter. Totally agree. White lives matter too. Yellow lives matter. Brown, all human life matters. And for me to just say, that there isn't discrimination against minorities is a big lie. There is discrimination. I've faced it in my life. But to say that there's no discrimination against, people who are Anglo-Saxon, that's also a lie too, because there's discrimination just because human beings are carnal and we judge based on outer appearance, and we shouldn't. And one of the big lessons when you have the Holy Spirit of God is that when you're in this walk, you have people of all different nationalities, and God's telling you, you need to get along with each other. You can't judge based on outer appearance. Just because you didn't trust a specific, like say Indians, for example. I'm not saying this is about me, but just making a general statement. If I'm Indian, I never trust Pakistani people. And then I'm in this walk now, and I meet someone in the faith, and he says, I'm from Pakistan, or my ancestors are from there, but I go, but I'm Indian. I can't talk to you. No, God is saying, don't look at this person as Pakistani, or don't look at this person as Chinese, or wherever they're from. Look at them as your brother in Christ, or your sister in Christ. To do so is, I believe, that isn't Torah. You're not respecting the Torah when it says to love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't say love your neighbor if he's Jewish. It doesn't say love your neighbor if he's your race and you're from the same country. But love each other because I've commanded you. People will know you're my disciples if you have love for each other. There's a lot of lessons to learn in this, in the events that are going on. The United States of America are in a very precarious situation. If this doesn't die down and it continues to, if they continue to fuel the fire, oh boy, we have to pray that these tempers will not flare further, but that the situation will be under control, and that once, I read that normally in investigations like this, relating to police brutality, normally it takes 9 months, something like 9 months to serve a sentence to the police officer to charge them with anything. But this only took like a day or two. That's unprecedented. And from the reports that I had read, President Trump, he was watching this news. Yeah, I heard that he watched the video at least once, maybe twice, and he was very upset. So if he's racist, as they're saying, mainstream media says President Trump's racist. If he's really racist, and I don't believe he is, if he is, he wouldn't be angry, number one. And number two, he wouldn't get the FBI, the federals, he wouldn't get the feds to get involved and investigate. But alas, he's doing so because he said, this has to be taken care of. He's not going to let it be done by incompetent people, especially by the police force that's already has seeds of corruption. There's so much corruption in that police force in that state, specifically in Minneapolis or whatever city that was in. And President Trump said, you know what, FBI, you go to task. You look into it, and you deal with it and do your best. Basically, you're the best able to look into it and let justice be served. That's I know a lot of initial reactions, especially including myself. I was pretty mad about it. I said, death penalty and all these things. But you know what? Let God be the judge, and let God take vengeance, and let it not be, let me not speak out of turn, and just get angry, sure, but don't sin. Don't have hate in your heart that you want to murder these cops. Don't murder the cops with your own hands. There's a legal system, and let God's will be done in this case. That's all I can say about it. Okay, that's the end of that. So now as we approach this date, the date of, what is that date? The date of, this date, breaking the pride of your power. Okay, read that already. Leviticus 26, verses 18 to 29. Okay, those are the curses. We had focused on the sword aspect of this fourth curse, famine or plague aspects of it. In 2005, I shot an arrow in the air based upon the scriptures, and 15 years later, it has hit the target and landed at the edge of the bullseye, so close to being spot on that it is stunning. COVID-19 has locked the entire world at home for the past 3 months, and the lockdown may go on for another 1 or 2 months before it is relaxed around the world, and then further lockdowns will start again this fall all over again. This is going to destroy economies as nations go bankrupt, as well as individuals. With the change of Shavuot by 1 month this year, I was forced to relook at our 2300 day count. We explained in our video the 2300 countdown, 1260, 1335, and 1290. In this video, we walk you through the process of learning how to do this counting process. How the 29-day months become 30, and then adds 20 extra days to each 3.5 period time. I think 3.5 period of time, for a total of 40 extra days over 70 years. We explained how these extra days and the count itself showed you where a leap year was. And when that Adar bet would be added. After doing all of this step by step so you could learn, we then counted back 2300 days from the time the 2 witnesses should be starting to arrive in the fall of 2026. Counting back from that time brings us to July 5th, 2020 as the start date. Okay. Oh, wow. That's interesting. So if you count back, what is this? How many days? 2300 days from fall 2026 brings us July 5th. But because I could not ascertain if an Adar bait was to be included or not, I was not 100% sure. I could not also determine when the 30-day months would begin. With this in mind, let us get off the ranch, as it were, and do some exploring to see if we can find anything new. Okay, so we're getting into the meat of this. Well, we're at an hour 20, but that's because I went ranting. Adam, blood Mars. Okay, I am about to share something with you that is really off the wall. The amount of work that I have now put into it is baffling me. How did I get so much done, and still I am not sure what I've accomplished? A few weeks ago, someone wrote a comment on my newsletter, which led me to the site of Cyrus Harding. I would like you to go there now and read what he has said in this article, which got me so intrigued. In his article, he states the following. He wrote this February 24, 2020, so roughly 3 months ago. He had no idea of what I had recently shared with all of you on May 3rd, 2020, about the 2300 days, and when they are to begin. I have recently shown you that I believe they begin July 5th, 2020, or thereabouts. Cyrus states the following. When equals April 23rd, 2020 to August 18, 2020. Like I said, this is a long cycle. Phase 1, April 23 to May 1st. Intensity, 30%. Phase 2, May 2nd to May 22nd. 40%, so it increases each phase. Phase 3, May 23rd to June 13. Whoa. Phase 4, June 14 to July 4. How much? 75%. Okay, what phase are we in now? We're on May 30. We're at 50% intensity. I guess that, what's his name? George Floyd. I think he was killed around May 23rd, 25th. Wow, that's interesting. So June 14th is going to be an interesting date between July 4th, up to July 4th. How much? 75%. Phase 5, July 5th to July 25th. So these are increments of about 20 days. It looks like. Is that correct? 20 days. Phase 6, July 26th to August 18. So it seems to going up in intensity, reaches a peak at around July 4th, and then starts to decrease. I'm not sure what that means, but he preceded the statement with this paragraph. Let me just look at the Codgerville. Okay, what is this? Cycle update. Home of the country Codger. A new perspective on survival preparedness. Civil War II. Economic collapse and other major events awaiting the modern world in 2012 and beyond. Okay. So don't compare my cycle work with Joseph Dumont or Charles Reed. He's saying his work is inferior. All right, sure. Impeachment. Okay, let's look at Qasem Soleimani. Oh yeah, right. This is in February. Wow. '49 biblical cycle, the midpoint. So he's looking at the Jubilee cycles. So he has the phases there. Okay. That's interesting. 11 comments. So it seems that Ranger Rick, most folks have not tied this to the scriptures. They need to understand time may be short. So he is a believer in Messiah. Codgerville, whatever his name is. Cyrus, I suppose. Oh, he's Hebrew? Okay, so that's interesting. It's very intriguing that people's hearts and their mouths are speaking these things. It's not just Joseph Dumont, but other people too. He proceeded the statement, the paragraph. Why are you reading this? Because you want to see if something is coming and when, right? So this newsletter is really important. I apologize for all my rants. It's just, there's so much going on in the world and in my personal life. So I have a lot of issues to deal with. The next cycle coming is a complex cycle and is not global in the sense of the word that the one that ended on February 24th was global. It will affect every continent on the earth, but not the same way at the same time. Okay. It is composed of two separate but overlapping stages, and it is the time when the stages overlap that I see the greatest period of uncertainty. Having said that, the cycle coming is not as strong as the ones we just left, but its effects will linger longer. For comparison, just think of the effect like noise. Loud, annoying noises get on your nerves quickly, while noises that are not as loud, like the water dripping in the kitchen sink in the night, will cause you to do things only after you can't tolerate it any longer. The coming cycle looks to have that type of effect, long and irritating. And all of this was preceded by the curses that we have outlined, and all of our work since 2005. What was he warning us about? I did not understand. I read his article again and again, and then I wrote to him and asked if we could talk. His information was overlapping what I was saying. How did he arrive at about the same time? This is what I needed to know. I forget how long we talked over Zoom, whether it was an hour or more. I forget, as I had so much to absorb. Cyrus's credentials are that he is a former CIA analyst figuring out patterns. Wow. Okay, I don't see how he's inferior then. That's an interesting credential to have. He had also in previous years warned of something coming out of China in November and something else on February 24, 2020. He had picked the time the virus began and the day the stock market began to collapse. But Cyrus thought it was going to be about oil. He had my attention. We did not dwell on this too much, as I was more focused on what he was looking at to determine his warnings. Although he looks at a number of things, the one thing that stuck with me was the moons at perigee and apogee in relation to the Earth. Perigee is how close the moon is to the Earth, okay, and apogee is how far the moon is from the Earth. Good to know. So he's a former CIA, but he believes in God and Messiah. And following the Jubilee cycle, that is remarkable. That's like when God takes people from, like Paul, for example, he was a Pharisee of Pharisees and he was put into this work. So that's interesting. Every time my wife goes to work on a full moon, I hear her tell me all about the nutcases will be out tonight, and she dreads going to work. And I remember doing night shifts, and on the full moons, they'd say, "Oh, watch out, it's a full moon." And I always told them, I'm not superstitious about that. And yeah, there would be some behaviors, but to be honest, I I sensed the Spirit of God with me when I was working, so He made it so that I was able to cope and to deal with whatever came my way, no matter what day it was, Friday the 13th or whatever, whatsoever have you. Or people believe in, ghosts and demons in that place, but I just felt the presence with me was stronger than any presence that could go against me. Anyway, Cyrus told me the same thing. When you combine the electromagnetic field, not sure if I understood this correctly, from the moon, or a full moon, with its perigee, and again with its apogee, you get what he called the crazy effect. I think Cyrus, for all he could tell me, as his notes were in Texas, and he was not there at this time. For some reason, I did not leave that phone call, thinking I had just talked to a nut job. He was serious, and he is a believer. This sent me on some deep research as I searched out the perigee of the moon, and then the full moons, crescent moons, and conjunctions that led me to the conjunctions of the planets, and then this all led me to lay it all out in Excel. I really sensed that this day started off pretty good. I woke up really early, 5 in the morning, and I was trying to do like Yeshua did, praying before the sun rose, really taking the time to read the scriptures, really praying from the heart, really trying to encourage people and to fellowship, but I didn't get to do that fellowshipping and encouraging people because I was attacked spiritually and was greatly discouraged. My soul was vexed, and I was on the verge of just giving up. And I made a promise to God 17 years ago. I said, let me obey you. Let me never depart this way, your way, even to my death and after my death. So for me to want to give up means it was pretty bad because I already made a promise that I wouldn't depart from it. But I felt on the verge of pretty much depression, and I was attacked so fiercely that it just made me want to, I just wanted to sleep, and that I did. I slept, and I woke up. What time? I think I slept for a couple hours. I woke up around 2 p.m. and I joined the Zoom meeting late. But the words that I heard, the very first words from the speaker, were so encouraging to me. It's the words I needed to hear at that exact time because I was greatly discouraged. It was like someone punched me in my lungs, and I couldn't get up, and I was just getting kicked and kicked on the floor. And I know suffering isn't the worst of things. It's actually good in some ways, but when people persecute you and want you to give up, when people tell you that, when they try to discredit God, when what you're doing, the ways you are following, and the beliefs you hold on to are called from Satan, when they're called and labeled as being from Satan, that is very discouraging. But the proof is in the pudding. If you look and search the scriptures, if you search history, you will find that it can be proven, this calendar of sighted moon, at living this lifestyle that Yeshua very much was a Jew, but he did not put the traditions of men over the Torah, but he magnified the Torah. He fulfilled the scriptures, he fulfilled the Torah. So I was greatly discouraged today, even though I knew deep in my heart that what I was being told was false, that the spirit behind it was not from God, it was from the enemy, and it was meant to hinder my speaking today. It was to hinder my joining the Zoom meeting, because at one point I didn't even want to join the Zoom meeting. I just wanted to just sleep all day. At one point, I just wanted to sleep all day and not even, and call the Sabbath a curse and a burden. In my heart, I said, the Sabbath has become a burden to me because of all this vexing of my soul and these words that have been beaten into my ears and into my heart. But I understand the attacks that I suffered today were not personal attacks on me. I was not attacked. It was Elohim that was attacked. It was his words that were attacked. It was Jehovah that was attacked. And I just call on Jehovah to defend me, but not to take vengeance in such a way that, those who greatly discouraged me would be harmed in any way, but they would only be led to understand that you are right, Jehovah, that you are God, that you are Elohim, and that your word is truth, and that I don't think myself superior to anyone just because I try to follow his ways. Just like Moses, I just try to go about my life minding my own business. I don't care what people think of me. I don't care for being better than others. I don't care for being, if people perceive me as less than if their opinion of me is less because I deal with addiction to pornography. I don't care. God knows my struggles. Only God can judge me. But I have to live an honest life. I can't claim to be a follower of Yeshua and continue living in sin. I have to look at the problems that I struggle with and ask for the help of the Father and the Son to help me overcome it, because I can't do it on my own efforts. I will not be successful in overcoming the enemy and the sins that are every minute. I can't sit on my laurels and just say, okay, I know the holy days, I know the Sabbath, I know the clean and unclean meats, I know the sighted moon, I know this, I know that, I know Septuagint. That doesn't really matter. It matters, do I really love God? Do I really love my fellow human being? And how do I live my life? What kind of thoughts do I think before I go to bed? Do I think lustful thoughts? Do I think pure thoughts about women? What kind of words do I use? Do I speak the words of Elohim, or do I speak my own words? And I'm not saying my own words like Masoretic text, but I mean, do I speak the things that I want? Am I trying to make myself look good? Do I do the works of God? Do I do things for greedy gain, or do I do it just because, God commanded me to, and I just do it, expecting nothing in return, expecting no more than you're just a servant doing what you were told. That doesn't make you shouldn't. If you just do what you're commanded, why should you expect a reward? You just did what you're commanded, so you shouldn't expect applause or anything like that. You just did the bare minimum. But I think Yeshua called us to go the extra mile, to go beyond the call of duty. And that's I think that's a very big lesson in this walk, is that we are expected to go the extra mile. Yeshua said, if someone asks for your coat, give him your tunic, or, you know what I mean? Like, if one asks you to walk a mile, walk 2 miles. And a lot of people take that out of context to mean, okay, let's be doormats. No, that's not what Yeshua is saying. He's not saying let's be doormats. He's saying to show them, to bring them into this way. If you see somebody with an inkling of interest, that they have a desire to follow this way, you should bring out all the stops and lead them and encourage them in this way, but not offend them, not make this way seem like a burden and for the Torah to be hard to keep, and that it's not attractive. And I don't mean attractive in a carnal way, but I mean that it's not something that would be beneficial and not wise. And people see it as hypocritical, but they see it as, this is real. People, these are real people in this movement who have real problems, and they don't pretend that they don't have problems, but they actually are trying to better themselves, but only through the grace of God, only through Elohim's help can they do it, only with his spirit and by his spirit and through the blood of Yeshua, by accepting his forgiveness, by accepting his sacrifice and not forgetting that sacrifice, but always remembering that great death penalty that we all deserve. And we should go on not sinning anymore, but continue in the righteous path, because that's one of the fruits of the Spirit. It's Sadiq. It's commonly translated as goodness, but in the Hebraic thought, it's Sadiq, it's righteousness. It is actually following the Torah, not just physically, but spiritually, which is greater than the physical requirements of the law. Because, for example, murder, instead of just murdering someone, you shouldn't even hate somebody. So you can see how that has been magnified, for example. So I'm going to look that up. If someone asks you to walk a mile, walk 2. So I'm going to look that up, because I have a scripture that I ordered called The Source New Testament by Dr. A. Nyland, or Neeland. And she is a very interesting person. She is a Greek scholar. She's an expert in the Greek language. I'm going to look up this verse just to see what it says in this translation, which is very much sticking to the spiritual truth of the New Testament. So I kind of regard this as, so far so good. It's kind of like the Septuagint of the New Testament. As much as I have promoted the Westcott and Hort translation, this is even better. It's called The Source New Testament. You can find it on Amazon. And it's no longer Shabbat, so I can promote that. And it's very affordable. I think it was $20 or less. I don't remember right now. Okay, chapter 5, verse 41. Okay, here it says here, oh wow, okay, this is very, I could probably do a lot of videos on this source book, but anyway, I'm just going to look at about being a doormat. It says here, you have heard the saying in verse 38, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But let me make this clear. Don't oppose an evil person at all. Instead, if someone slaps you across your face, let them. Wow. Okay. If someone conscripts you and makes you go with them for 1 mile, go with them for 2 miles. So conscripts means going into war, like a draft. If someone wants to your quota as well, if someone conscripts you and makes you go with them for 1 mile, okay. Wait, did I read that already? Give people whatever they ask from you, and don't turn away people who want to borrow from you. Yes, you have heard the saying. Okay. Okay. So this is kind of explicit. You've heard the saying, you must love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you to love your enemies and pray for those who put curses on you. Then you will really be the children of your Father in the heavenly places. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to reason this scripture, trying to make sense of this, of the context of it. I don't know, because I'm trying to make sense that I don't believe he's telling us to be doormats, to just be taken advantage of, because people think a lot of Christians are naive and gullible and, overly trusting and all that. But it says to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, so I'm trying to reconcile this statement. Because it follows the saying that you must not swear an oath that you don't intend to keep. So keep your promises. Okay. Anyway, I'm so off topic, but I'm trying to say that from what I have been led to understand, it's not being a doormat, but you're doing this, you're behaving this way, loving your neighbor, loving your enemy, I should say, letting people, slap your face. Someone slaps you across the face, let them. He's not saying just be doormat. He's saying you're trying to show them that this is the way. Yeshua said these words, and what did they do? They slapped him across the face, and what did he do? He let them. He let them slap him and hit him. They took his clothes and even his purple vesture that they cast lots for. They asked him to carry the cross, and he did carry it, even though he was feeling weary. He didn't just say these things, he did them. He was a man of much suffering, acquainted with a lot of suffering and sorrows. And I don't know, it's one of the hardest sayings for me in the Bible, to be honest, because people try to make sense of it out of human reasoning. And you know what? This goes against our human nature to be taken advantage of. So perhaps, I don't know, maybe people's consciences will convict them. I don't know. I guess it's one of the mysteries I'll just can't seem to solve right now. So I'm just going to leave that alone because, to be honest, I do not know why I said that. It's something that I haven't reached the maturity to understand. But yeah, if you understand it, please comment. This is a long video, probably going to go to I don't know how long, who knows. Okay. Where am I now? Crazy effect. Okay, full moons. All right. The conjunction of the planets. This past week, we did a video interview with Cyrus. Oh, that's who it was with. Okay, so there was a video with him. I had let him read this newsletter. Oh, so why am I doing this then? You read the newsletter. We talked about these things in detail. I encourage you to watch the video now, and after read the rest of this letter. This video has more information that I've not put in here. Oh, interesting. So let's look. I'm not going to watch it right now. Just see. Okay, this is an ad. Let's mute it. So this is the video. I don't know why it's in that language. I think that's German. I don't even know. Looks like German or Dutch or Finnish. Do not know. Okay, let's let it load. Let's see how long this is. I'm gonna guess it's at least an hour. In the midst of the year 2020, 1,000 views. Whoa, that's a lot of views. Okay, an hour and 28. I'm just gonna go in the middle and see. Wow, Cyrus Harding. Okay, that has really taken off. This video. That was only 5 days ago. I'll definitely watch this. This seems very interesting. These are cycles inside of cycles. So he's seeing inside the Jubilee cycles. Oh, that's Cyrus? Why did I picture him not looking like that? Anyway, wow. All right, so that's definitely my watch list. I will just add it to my watch list, but I'll do that later. I'll just leave it open there. Make sure we're still going. I know it's a very, what's the word? I'm going really slow. But again, it's either I do slow or I don't do it at all, because I really didn't want to do this today. Like initially, I didn't want to join the Zoom meeting. I didn't want to do much of anything today after that spiritual beatdown I received today. I was very greatly discouraged, like I said, but you have to go on, you have to push forward and not look at the things that are behind. So that's what I'm doing right now. Strive to just let the past remain in the past. So it's interesting. I'm going to watch that tomorrow because it's right. And I'm only like a quarter through. So I want to just get through this newsletter. The prophets. We have the state 67 to 70. Where are all the prophets from eternity who spoke these things? Acts 3, 20 to 21. Again, who are these prophets that Peter is talking about, who said these things from the beginning? Paul also wrote about this knowledge that is known by all. Romans 1, 18 to 20. Again, where are those things that are revealed from heaven? Where has Jehovah revealed them? Paul again says, Romans 10, 17, 18. Again, I ask you, when did this happen? When were the words of Jehovah sent to the ends of the world? The answer, some of you already know where I'm going. We just read this psalm on day 26, counting the Omer, Psalm 19, 1 to 6, or 1 to 13. The heavens declare the glory of Jehovah, and the last half of this psalm tells us of his covenant. The oldest book in the Bible talks about the constellations. The book of Job is said to have been written about 2000 BC, and actually it's Job because J is like Jehovah. You don't say Jehovah, you don't say Job, so it's Job. Job was written 2000 BC, verses 9 to 10. What do we call the Big Dipper? Job. Oops, bad habit. Job calls the bear and is in Hebrew called Ayish. Orion is called in Hebrew Kasiel. And Pleiades still goes by the same name today, but in Hebrew it is Kima. The cluster of stars is found in the shoulder. This cluster of stars is found in the shoulder of the constellation Taurus, the bull. We also read about Jehovah, who names these same constellations in Job 38, verses 1, 31 to 33. Job again explains or speaks of the constellation Draco when he says the fleeing serpent in Job 26:13. That's interesting. He really is talking about constellations, eh? It was Jehovah who created these images in the heavens. He named them according to Isaiah. Isaiah 40:26, Psalm 147:4, Amos 5:8. We are told that Adam, Seth, and Enoch are the ones who wrote down the names of the stars and the constellations, and we are told that right from the beginning, they were to be used for our understanding of Jehovah. Genesis 1:14-16. The Tower of Babel is mentioned in Genesis 11:4. The Beers Nimrud excavation site in Iraq is an example of the Tower of Babel that Nimrod built. Borsippa was an important ancient city of Sumer, the principal feature today being a ruined ziggurat that rises high above the surrounding plain and is easily visible from satellite photographs. The site name today, Beers Nimrud, probably seeks to identify the site with the more famous ziggurat ruins at Nimrud. Dependent upon Babylon, never the seat of autonomous power, Borsippa was repeatedly mentioned, usually in connection with Babylon, in texts from the Ur-III period through the Seleucid period and even in early Islamic texts. Rebuilt under Nebuchadnezzar, the Borsippa ziggurat was laid out in 7 terraces and reached a height of more than 230 feet in ancient times. Even as a ruin today, it stands more than 172 feet above the flat plain, easily visible in satellite photos. So Beers Nimrud, ancient Borsippa. So it still exists, I guess, today. Yeah, it says right there, 172 feet high. And it says there, a ziggurat dating to the Babylonian period, around 600, 500 BC. So that's what they look like, with a little dome on the top. Kind of looks like those pyramids made by the Mayans and Incas and all that. Basically looks like a pyramid with like steps. Each of the 7 terraces was to represent one of the 7 planets. 7 planets? Why are there 7? Okay, and the top of it was to show the Dendera, also called the Mazzaroth. This is exactly what Genesis 11 is speaking about, that they were building when Jehovah came down. These ziggurats were built in all the great cities, and it was from here that the men of Babylon watched all the events in the heavens and recorded them. So I guess like planetariums. I strongly suspect the pyramids are connected to this understanding as well, but that is another study. So we know the ancients were watching the stars and reading them for a very specific reason. They knew they were from Jehovah, telling them of what was coming. Okay. Even Eve looked to the stars and thought she understood the message she was reading in them. We have these 2 constellations that she would have known about. Ophiuchus, depicted with his heel, being attacked by Scorpio while he is bruising the head of a serpent. Aquila, the falling eagle. The brightest star, Al-Okal, wounded in the heel. Orion coming forth as light. The brightest star is Betelgeuse, the coming of the branch. In Orion's foot is the star Rigel, the foot that crushes. In the shoulder is the star Bellatrix, quickly coming. and the leg is the star Saif bruised. What a remarkable prophecy from Jehovah. Jehovah showed Adam and Eve and the stars that a descendant of Eve will destroy the serpent. But he also says that when this descendant crushes the serpent, he will die, vividly described as being bitten by a venomous viper. So I just want to mention here, I want to mention of rants throughout this video, and instead of re-recording, because there's already like 2 hours plus, I'm just going to put a timestamp for those who want to skip over my rants. Yeah, because we're over 2 hours. I don't want to waste people's time, so I'll try to do timestamps to so that you can skip over my ranting about various issues that are not in the newsletter. So just try to keep it on topic. So I'll try to do that if I have time. But actually, I have time. I'll just try to do that. Let's just keep going. What a remarkable prophecy. Okay, so there is Eve pregnant. She knew this child would have to be unique if he were to undo what she and Adam had done to the world. By committing the world's first sin, they had started a chain of events that no regular person could ever contain. All their descendants would inherit this sinful condition and die because of it. It was impossible for any regular person to do anything without the infection of sin ruining his actions in one way or another. Eve knew this. Eve was experiencing morning sickness, swollen ankles, and a painful back. The final hours of her pregnancy reminded her so vividly of Jehovah's earlier words to her. They rang in her ears as she gave birth to Cain. I will intensify your pains of childbirth. In pain, you will bear children. But now, with the birth of Cain, and it's interesting that she didn't give birth before the curse, so how would she know the difference, right? Eve is experiencing something new. She is experiencing the first blush of motherhood and such joy as she breastfeeds Cain, and he coos with delight in being fed. In Eve's joy, she remembers Jehovah's promise. One of her descendants will crush the serpent's head. One of her descendants will free the human race from sin and death. And so in this moment of sheer joy, Eve cries out the faith that is within her. I've gotten a man from Jehovah. She believes the newborn baby moving in her had prophesied. Oh, okay, I've gotten a man, the Lord. All right, I don't remember reading it that way, but oh, how she wants that to be. It's Genesis 4. Do I have? I'll look it up. Okay, so Genesis 4 verse 1, in the Septuagint, 4 verse 1. It says here, and Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and brought forth Cain and said, I have gained a man through Elohim. So no, it doesn't say that actually. It says I have gotten a man through Elohim. So from this we can see that right from the start, the constellations were telling those looking at them what was to come. And many have misread them throughout the ages. Could I be misunderstanding what I'm seeing in this report? I'm now presenting to you. Yes, but judge it for yourselves and then decide. We then have the prophet Isaiah describing the coming of Jehovah with us. I just want to mention that the words that Jehovah said to Cain, to you, sin lies at the door, but to you shall be a submission. and you will rule over him. That's Genesis 6. No, sorry. It's not Genesis 6. Where is that? I think it's 4. Yeah, it's the same. It's right after he was born. It says, Cain's countenance fell. Why are you become very sorrowful, and why is your countenance fallen? Have you not sinned, if you have brought it rightly? So it doesn't say that sin is lying at the door. It doesn't say that at all. Have you not sinned if you have brought it rightly, but not rightly divided it? Be still. To you shall be a submission, and you shall rule over him. So I originally thought or believed that that meant, Cain would overcome it, or he can overcome it. But now I'm starting to see a little bit that the descendant of, well, not Cain, but really of Seth, descendant of Adam, was able to, through the help of Jehovah and the Holy Spirit, he really did sin submitted to him, to Yeshua, and he really ruled over it. He didn't let it rule over him like a lot of us tend to do when we're led by the flesh and not by the Spirit. He was fully led by the Spirit in every decision and from birth to death. He was led by the Holy Spirit of Jehovah. He didn't let his will of the flesh become a master over him, and he wasn't a slave to sin ever. Although there was temptations in many ways, as he was a young man, he had many women around him, probably young women too. Many temptations to in the desert, where he said turn these stones into bread, things like that. And he didn't commit iniquity, or there were no intentional or unintentional sins. He didn't miss the mark once. He always hit the bullseye. So from this, we can see that right from the start, the constellations were telling those looking at them what was to come, and many have misread them throughout the ages. Could I be misunderstanding what I am seeing in this report I'm now presenting to you? Yes, but judge it for yourselves and then decide. Then you have the prophet Isaiah describing the coming of Jehovah with us, Isaiah 7:14. We have the apostle John writing on the Isle of Patmos around 90 AD, 90 years after the birth of Yeshua, writing the following. Revelation 12:1-2. And I guess I will read this because it seems to be pertinent to this newsletter. I'm going to read it in this text, this translation of Revelation 12, verse 1, just to see how it is translated here from this lady who very much is an expert and doesn't translate based on her biases, but translates it just to translate it to the best of her Greek expertise. So it says, and a mighty sign appeared in heaven. It was a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in torture. Cried out in torture as she was in labor and about to give birth. Wow. So she's a pregnant woman about to give birth. You can actually see how the sun is clothing the woman, and you can clearly see how the moon is below her feet. This moon, once the sun is set, is the very first crescent of the moon, as seen from Jerusalem. And this is the first day of the 7th month. It is the Feast of Trumpets, the day and hour no man can know. In our pictures, The date says 2 BC. This is because they used the Julian count, which includes 0 as a year. So the event took place September 11, 3 BC. The Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Shouting, the day and hour no man can know, the day Yeshua was born. Now read the rest of this prophecy from John in 3 verses 3 to 6. So I'm going to read it again from the source. It says here, chapter 12, I saw another sign in heaven. It was a huge red dragon with 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 diadems on the heads. Its tail dragged a third of the stars out of the sky and hurled them to the earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that he could eat her child the moment it was born. She gave birth to a son who was destined to rule all the nations with an iron rod. Her child was snatched away and carried up to Elohim and to his throne. The woman escaped into the desert to a place that Elohim had prepared for her, so that she would be taken care of for 1260 days. Here is what John was looking at and interpreting for us. The dragon was the serpent below, the constellation of Virgo, and in the sky. Below this constellation of the serpent are 1/3 of all the stars, just as John is describing. Oh. Okay, Revelation 9:1. Take note that in the next verse it is Yeshua who is saying this. Luke 10:18. Revelation 12:7-9. It says here, war broke out in heaven. Michael and his messengers, or angels, waged war against the dragon, and the dragon and his messengers fought back. But the dragon wasn't strong enough, and thus they no longer had a place in heaven. The mighty dragon was thrown down, the ancient snake, that ancient snake called slanderer, liar. Wow. And also called adversary, who leads the whole earth away astray. He and his messengers were hurled to the earth. Okay. So, this is the constellation of Draco as it falls to the earth. The little bear is the Little Dipper. There are many more scriptures I could pull up, but my point is this. The heavens declare the glory of Jehovah. We should be looking there to see what they are telling us. Although the stars may have different names around the world, it makes no difference, the language. All the stars have the same meaning in every tongue and the same constellations. Now you know and can understand where the prophets of old spoke of these things found in the heavens from the very foundation of the world, looking to the heavens. Let us go back and look at